Hi everyone, welcome to WW Designs. My name is Nikki and today I've got another fun project where we can take magazines we have finished with and just before we throw them into the recycling bin, we can turn pages into washi tape. Now, I have a huge tub of washi tape, some of which I have had for years. And one thing I have learnt, if you have washi tape, you must use it because it's not uncommon for the glue to go all yucky and mucky, and some of my favourites I've had to throw in the bin. And the other thing is, with washi tape, you end up with tons of it, but you may only use it once in a blue moon. This project gives you smaller pieces of which you can make as many of as you like, or it just gives you nice little bits to play with and you don't have to store a big tub of washi. So what do I use washi for? If you're making a mixed media art page, little colourful strips can just be a perfect little addition of colour or contrast. I also use washi tape in my planner and my art journal pages, in my actual journal pages, just sometimes to add a coloured stripe down the side of a page for a bit of deco. And of course, if you ever do happy mail swaps and you decorate your envelopes, adding some washi tape strips is perfect. And together with some glue stick, you glue them down. I don't worry about, them having to be on an adhesive back. A glue stick will turn a piece of paper into washi tape in a flash. So, where do we start? Well, the first thing I'm going to show you is the absolute easiest way to create washi tape, like this. Have a look at this. So, you grab yourself a magazine. Hang on a minute. I want them all nice and straight. So, you grab yourself any magazine. I prefer magazines that are done on matte paper, but of course, a lot of magazines, the paper's glossy. And then, for example, I have this page here. Can you see this beautiful pattern here? A lot of magazines obviously have plenty of white pages, but they also have pretty borders. Sometimes they're quite thin, and as you can see, I've only been able to cut like a tiny little strip, but this one, I would actually save that whole bit. If I want less, I can always cut it down, but go through your magazines, have a look at every page, and wherever there's a pretty border, save it. And then look at that. That was 2 magazines, and I got all these cute washi strips. How cool is that? Plain colours are great. This one, I don't know if the camera will pick it up. It does sort of have a bit of a texture pattern on it. This one definitely does. It's a bit like a weave. Love the stripe. Or just pretty patterns. Like this red one is gorgeous. This was actually from a Valentine's Day spread. But I absolutely love it. So you don't even have to get your art supplies out. And you can already start saving a washi strip selection. But of course, there's also plenty of pages that just have text on it, or sometimes even just a coloured background, and together with art supplies, whatever you've got, it doesn't matter. Paint, like acrylic, watercolours, markers, stencils, stamps, you name it. There's no limit to what you can create. So what I've done, I will add this project to my rainy day project. So when you're bored, you want to do something creative, grab one magazine, cut it into strips, have some fun, and I'm going to show you lots of ways you can create your own unique washi tape. So to get started on this project, you obviously need some strips of paper from your magazine. It doesn't matter how big they are, how small they are. You can end up just tearing off or cutting off a little bit once they're decorated. You can make nice thin strips if that's what you need. But to actually craft on and create something, make them a reasonable size, but otherwise, whatever. It doesn't matter either whether they're all plain. You can certainly use some that already have colour on it. I have done a few of those. And all you need then is some baking paper. And the reason why we're doing this, I like using baking paper. First of all, if we're going to make a mess, we want to protect our mat and stuff like that, if we're using paint or whatever. The other thing is, what I do is I grab my little glue stick here. Roller tape, well, not glue stick. You can use glue stick if you like, but roller tape works really well. Actually, I already put a little bit on this one, I can see. And then I just place that down on my baking paper. So we're protecting our mat. At the same time, when it comes to storing these later, which I will show you how I do it, this makes for an easy transfer to that stage. A little tiny bit of the roller glue on each end also helps to stop the paper from curling up the minute it gets wet with mixed media. If you don't have any of this, you can still do these. And I did the first one I did that I was mucking around with. I just grabbed some acrylic paint and a dry brush, and I brushed the paint all down it. And within 2 seconds, the paper had curled up into a roll. It looked like a cigarette, like it was a cigar, like it was a perfect roll. I didn't touch it. Not on purpose, but because my phone rang. And by the time I'd finished the phone call, the paper had flattened itself out. So if you do want to do this, you don't have tape, don't stress if it rolls itself up in a ball. The damn thing just flattened itself out all on its own as it dried. So, of course, that will work. Now, if you want to do a lot at one time, because you've got a few hours, you want to play with your supplies, fabulous. Grab a larger sheet of baking paper and just stick them all down and start playing. You might want to make them all different. You might want to make them similar. Doesn't matter. But if you just want to start with one at a time, so for example, you're doing another project and you've used a stencil. Okay, so you've got this dirty stencil. You've got this dirty sponge. Before you go and wash it, make 1 or 2 or 3 of these. That way, you're not making any extra mess, and you can just build up your supply over time as you're doing other projects. When I show you some of my examples, if you've been following this channel for a while, you may very well recognise the stencils and things that I used, because I had them dirty, so I thought, let's make some washi tape strips while we're at it. So there's the first one ready to go. I shall pop those strips over to the side. And I think we will play with some acrylic paint for this one. So I'm grabbing my favourite plate in the house. Love my acrylic paint thing. And then we're going to have a look around the house and find some shapes and things that you can create marks with. We're not trying to create the Mona Lisa here. We just want to make some marks. And then the contrast and the patterns and this coming, you know, the text and things coming out from underneath can make some really interesting pieces. So the very first thing I'm going to play with is the top of this glue stick. It's round, it's lovely and flat, and so we're going to grab some ink, some acrylic paint we're going to start with. How about we go with this? So this is just cheap acrylic paint. Please, you don't need fancy ones for this. The cheaper, the better, because you don't need it to look absolutely amazing. You just want to create some marks. So get out all that grungy old paint. Who cares? Nice and cheap. And then we're just dabbing this in there till we've got some coverage. And we're going to add some blobs. Go over the edges, get the corners covered, but it doesn't matter. As much or as little as you like. Well, I think that should do that for round 1. The next thing I'm going to grab, this is an old dauber. The These are just cheapy ones from Temu, and before you know it, the foam starts to disintegrate, but they cost so little money. I don't care that they don't last for too long, but guess what? We can now use this for some rings. So let's grab another blue. If you want to do this with a variety of colours that maybe clash on the colour wheel, you don't need to be a colour wheel expert, but if you use multiple colours, you can end up with brown. That's not uncommon. If you want to use multiple colours, let each colour dry before you add the next layer. If you're using complementary colours, so to make this quicker and not have to worry about drying time, I'm going to just use all the blues and turquoise sort of range, and that way I don't have to worry about having things go brown and mucky. Unless, of course, you want brown and mucky. If you love grungy things, then go for it. Use all the colours in the world. But in this case, I'm trying to not have brown, just so I can show you how cool this can look, just using simple things from around the home. You'll be surprised if you turn things upside down and inside out, you can end up with all sorts of fun shapes to use. See, that already looks really cool like that, but I want to add a bit more, which I will be doing. So there we go. That's our second round. Another thing that's really good is a straw. And because we don't have these paper straws anymore, especially in Australia, I'm not sure about the rest of the world, we have all these lovely plastic options, which you can, of course, wash and reuse. Now, I am going to be a little bit game, and I'm going to add some pink. Oh, have a look at this poor thing. Something leaked and it's now covered in more pink, but this is a blue. This is a magenta. It's definitely got a bit of a blue undertone. It's not a really warm pink, so I'm happy to have a bit of a play mixing this. So again, just getting our thing, our straw, get some paint on it, and then I'm going to do a few cleanish ones first, keeping away from the real heavy blue, and then we can add some more. You might even end up with a few full blobs. That's fine too. Who cares? We're just having fun and we're making marks. But actually this one here, it's working fine. I'm not going to end up with browns. So that's cool. I like that. And just clean that off quickly. And then finally, I have found these have actually been banned in South Australia. We can still get them up here. These are these cute little fish soy sauce bottles, but I want to use it for this little round thing on the lid, and I'm going to be a bit naughty here and add copper, but this is a really opaque copper. It's beautiful. I don't think I'm going to have a turning brown issue with this, and I find it very hard to resist using metallics, and copper, I grab it all the time in my projects. And now we're just going to add some circles. And it's thick, it's blobby. They're not perfect circles. You have to do a lot of tapping if you want to end up with them perfect, but I'm quite happy to have lovely blobs of copper anywhere. You can also just do this with a paintbrush. Just slap on different bits of paint. I just like using things for other than their actual intended purpose. So there we go. I think we will call that one quits. That's enough ink on there. But, you know, you paint a plain page, you're going to do something mixed media, tear off a couple of strips of this and plop it down, and you've already got a really eye-catching piece for your work. And you can see little bits of magazine print. That's just all added fun. So that's the first one done. So for the next one, we're going to do another favourite technique of mine, and that's paint smooshing. It's the easiest way to get some paint down, and you can use acrylic paint and add some water. You can use distress oxides and add some water. You can also grab your very cheap watercolours and have some fun. So let's see what we're going to do here. What shall we pick? How about we do some green? Let's do some greens. So just adding some water, and then you just plop some down on your piece of packaging, any sort of plastic. I keep all my packaging, you know, from buying craft supplies. And in this case, I'm sort of doing it in a strip because it sort of works nicely with what we're trying to do here. And then you just smush it down until you have it all down on your paper. And if you want more of the same colour, by all means go for it. Or I might, what shall we do? Oh no, we'll go with this one now. We'll go a bit deeper. Doesn't matter if you've still got paint left on there. All good. And then we'll go down here where it's a bit lighter coverage. I need a little bit more for the top. What you can do is just add a bit more water. And that way you can use up what you've got. Just going to bring this around here for a minute, make it a bit easier. I don't want to knock my water cup over. Now again, you can let your colours dry in between, but I'm going to keep going. Maybe we'll go with a nice blue. Let's add a bit of blue. Trying to get some good coverage, maybe a bit down there. And then why not, what shall we add next? Actually, I might now go with this lovely darker green. And they can all blend in together. And then if you want, you can actually wipe off excess and clean it up so that you see this colour clearly. But again, we're just playing, having fun. Anybody can manage this. You don't need any artistic skill for this. All you got to be able to do is press stuff down. It's very simple. Now, of course, once this is done, you can stamp on top of it, whatever you like. Do some stenciling or just leave it the way it is. I think I'll call this one quits so I don't have to wait for it to dry. But you can see how quickly you can get some paint down onto a piece of magazine page. And don't forget, when this is dry and you put this away for storage, you can wipe these down, or this little bit will dry and you can keep reusing your baking paper. You don't have to keep having a fresh one every time. So with the help of stencils, they can be a great way to cover over coloured pieces. Now, I quite like these neutral colours that are in this one. So I'm going to work with the same sort of thing. So I'll end up with quite an interesting background, even though you won't be able to see a lot of it when I've finished. So what we're going to do, we're going to start off with this sand coloured paint. Take a little bit of that. My good old El Cheapo makeup sponge, which we dab off quite well so that we try and reduce bleed through. And then I'm going to use this stamp here because it has all sorts of different size holes, circles I should say, not so much holes. And we're just going to do some stamping. So we're already going to start to knock back the colours in the background. We're not trying to cover it completely, don't need to. This is what's fun about mixed media. Everything adds to the texture and the look. Don't need to have to fully hide things. If you want to, just grab a paintbrush and paint acrylic paint all the way down something, and then you won't see any of it. But for example, you might have a project and you need some blue colours for your background or something. Then just paint them with acrylic paint. It's so simple. Now, of course, this is not going to end up as the most perfect stenciling because it's glossy paper. So when I moved it, it did shrink around a bit. But you know what? That doesn't matter either. This is just all about layers and textures. So, yeah, it's a little bit whooshy, but can you see she's already sort of slowly starting to disappear. Then we're going to grab another stencil, and this time we're going to go a little bit darker. So I've got this supposed raw sienna. This again is just another cheapy paint. I purchase these regularly from cheap shops and things to do this sort of work with. You just don't need fancy things for little tasks like this. And then we're going to place these bubbles down on top and create another layer. There we go. And then the lucky last one, we are going to use this stencil that looks like coffee marks. And we're going to use some nice dark brown. This is supposedly burnt umber. And we're going to add some coffee mark because I love all things coffee. So I will often craft with that theme. So I'm quite happy to make myself some coffee-themed washi tape using a stencil. So we'll do some of this and see how this turns out. Again, can stamp then on the top some nice coffee cup images. This is just a very low pressure way to create. I love doing things like this. Let's see. We'll come in there. Get maximum coverage from the shape we've got. Okay, now I'd like another one here, so let's just pop that back down. I think, I might just do, let me just flip this around here a little bit. I'd like a little bit here. Voila, I think that will do it. Now, she's still under there, and if you look really closely, you can see her and her hand, but generally speaking, it doesn't matter. Actually, I might just do one more up over these words here so that they don't stick out quite so boldly. There we go. And that's it. So now, coloured piece. Any theme you want, just layer on some stenciling. And what is underneath is just sort of a little bit of added interest. There we go. One coffee-themed washi, ready to roll. So this next one is for lovers of all things grungy. Now, normally the easy way to start for a grungy base is to use coffee spray. But one thing I love doing is including a little bit of watercolour as well. So I grabbed the trusty old cheapo watercolours out again, and we are going to add a little bit of colour before we coffee spray. So we might go for a little bit of blue. Just, you know, dab it around a bit. You know, that lovely patina that comes from old metal. You know, it has that beautiful bluey, greeny tinge. So we're sort of going to add a little bit of that to our base here. You don't have to do this, just coffee spray, but I just feel this comes out really well. I think that will do it. And then we're coffee spraying. Instant coffee, nice and strong, cheapest one you can buy. I buy the horrid home brand one, which I would never drink, but oh boy, I love it for creating vintage things. Mix it in a glass bowl, a glass jar that's pourable with boiling water. Then when it's cold, add it to a spray container, and then all we do is spritz. If you press slowly, you get larger blobs of coffee. See, like this one here. And then if otherwise, just go quicker and you end up with a better coverage. Now, can you see how this is rolled up? That's what I was talking about before. Do not touch it. Just walk away, let it do its thing, and I'm going to come back and show you what it looks like with zero help from me. In the time it took me to have a quick cup of coffee, it's flattened itself out and it's dried. So then, of course, to make something truly grungy, the quickest and easiest way is to use some stamps. This is just a little set. I think I got it off AliExpress years ago. It's just some messy script, and it's my favourite way of creating grunge. And this is where non-perfect stamping is perfect. You just want to make some marks. And what we're going to do, we're going to put them down in all sorts of directions, and that way you can use this washi tape this way or horizontally. So nothing beats a bit of grungy text. And just for something different, I'm also going to do some of the text in copper. Black is good, brown is very good too, but just for something different, I'm going to use this fabulous copper colour. I love it. And we're going to do exactly the same thing. And it probably doesn't show up that well on camera, but when you see it in natural daylight, I've actually got my blind down here at the moment because the sun at this time of the day is just streaming in. But it looks absolutely beautiful, and it's a great way to add a bit of grunge. There we go. And then finally, the one thing I like to do is to add some black splatters. This is a little deodorant tray that the deodorants come in for display at work. I've been using this one for years. I just put a tiny little bit of black paint in here. This one is starting to get a bit thick. You don't need a lot. And then I'm going to happily use the same dirty water I've got here. And we're just going to pop a bit of water in here to water it down a bit. If you try and do it with neat acrylic paint, it's very hard to get splatters. So just Just add some water and then try and get the actual black to splatter on, not on the side. I think we need a bit more water. They're a bit too big. The more water you add, the smaller your little sprinkles get. Add a little bit more. Yeah, see, that paint's getting quite thick, but that's fine. That will do the job. Again, no Mona Lisa, but have a look. That looks lovely and grungy, and because of the print, use it any way you like, but that's a very quick and easy way to use your supplies for something grungy. Once you've made all your strips, a good way to store them. You can just put them into a box, into a plastic packet, but then you have to go rifling through them every time you want to find one to use. Increases the risk of damage, increases the risk of you not finding the one that you thought you had, but it's somewhere in the pile. So this is how I store mine. This is just an El Cheapo display folder. And I have lots of ones that I've already done. Now, these are really simple magazine strips and a black marker. One of my favourite ways to create anything like this, because black and white is just the perfect addition to any colour thing that you're doing. If you want something that will pop, you can't beat this. So this is just marks. They're far from perfect, but, you know, just cut off a little square, pop it down on the piece you're working on, anything like this. If you want something eye-catching, you can't beat black and white. So have fun. Don't have to make perfect marks. These are all very uneven, but they look really good as a standout piece. Then these ones here, I have just done all very simple using watercolours. I love little grids of different watercolours, tearing off a few bits and sticking them down a page. This one here, I just did two very wiggly stripes, and then I've put copper dots all the way down. This is just simple circles done with watercolour. You can then add more to this if you want, stamping, stenciling, or just leave it as coloured. This one, I just simply painted some watercolour stripes, grabbed a thin black marker and did some line work. Again, very simple, but incredibly effective. And then this final one, I've just blotched down all sorts of colours from the same colour family to avoid making brown, and then just added a few little black and white marks for interest. But it's one of those things you can keep building on top of it or keep things really simple. Then the next lot, now with all of these, I just started them off on one big sheet and I coffee sprayed the whole lot. Not as heavy as I did on the last one. And then I grabbed my Distress Oxides together with a brush and my stencils. So we've got a grungy one here with just some script. This one here is just, I've got some really fun stencils that are full of, perfect for mark making. This one here is all letters, and this one here, I just did some stamping on top of the coffee. The same here again. This one I did all with brown. This one I've done the black and copper combo, or black and brown, one of my favorites. And then this one here, I just grabbed a mixed stamp pad that I've got and just filled in as much space as I could. Easy, grungy bases. Can add as much to it as you like, or just leave them like this. They're absolutely perfect. And then I also did some horizontally rather than vertically, because I had these little strips. So do some, I mean, obviously doing the long vertical ones is great. You can use up the whole magazine sheet, but you might just have little bits and pieces left over. So you can certainly make some horizontal ones. This one here is just stenciled, again stenciled I used black paint for that one. This one is just some coffee stamps on top of a coffee coloured piece. This one's just all sorts of different shapes, all on one little stamp set. Just put some of those down. This one, I had this cute little butterfly there, so I just stamped on some flowers. The actual colour on the background was actually on the piece of magazine page, so that was perfect. This one here, I've grabbed some washi tape. You know, you can get the washi tape. It's a roll of washi that you cut up into pieces, and it's that lovely thin, on that transparent, not the white paper. So I just cut up little bits and pieces and I've glued them on top. And exactly the same I've done with these flowers. If you don't want to have to hand paint flowers, I've grabbed this washi tape and just trimmed off the excess. That was fabulous, a lot quicker and easier than painting flowers. And then this bottom one, I put copper paint down on the base. This is the one where it all curled up and I went, oh, this is all too difficult. But it flattened itself out, and then I've grabbed my distress ink and my brush and just done a little bit of stamping on it. Very easy. Then here's some other options. Now, this is a very similar, actually it's probably from the same strip. You can see those colours. And all I've done is I grabbed an old cork and some gold paint and blobbed that on, then used the copper with the lid off, it was a lid off a glue bottle that I had. So I love that you can see the colour underneath, plus also that bit of deco. With this one here, I used this stencil in one of my previous projects. So while I was at it, again, I used Distress Oxide, 2 different coloured greens and a brush with my stencil, and then of course a pink one to create that one. This one here is, I actually made a larger piece. I was doing some gel printing, so I used the magazine page as my clean off for my brayer, and I ended up with this lovely grungy mess, all sorts of different colours. If you like gel printing, use magazine sheets for your clean off, and you end up with beautiful things like that. This one here, this is another one. This was a champagne cork, I think, actually. This was just a normal cork. Some bottles of wine still have corks, and I've saved a few. Just a multitude of acrylic inks popped down there. This one here, I've stenciled in black, and then I've also got a copper-coloured marker and just gone around some of them to add a bit of highlight. And then finally, this one, it's just some paint markers that I had in my stash. I did some lines across, some lines down, created a nice little plaid look effect there. It doesn't matter what you use, pens, markers, paint, anything that makes a mark, you can add to magazine pages. And I now have plenty of space left to make some more. It's such a fun and easy project. It's giving a second life to a magazine that's only going to have to go through recycling. It will cost you absolutely nothing. Don't go and buy anything. Use what you have in your stash, and you can create so many of these. Not a single cent, just some time. If you like this sort of project, go to my rainy day playlist. I've got plenty of other ones there. They're all simple. They're all designed to use what you have. That's the golden rule with all of this. Don't go and buy a million new things. Find creative ways to use what you have. It's very satisfying and also incredibly fun to use when it's done. So if you have any questions, please pop them down in the comments box below. And if you could give this video a thumbs up, I would really appreciate it. And until next time, thank you so much for watching, and bye for now.